like the radio program host.
She looks like a DJ, so yeah.
Okay, I'm more than happy to be the moderator of an interview that is going to take place in a long distance. The long distance means that there will be two people involved in the interview, and these two people are two attractive men, and both of them have lots of interest in therapy. In fact, it's solution-focused brief therapy. One of them comes from Finland, so let me welcome the first guest, Dr. Ben Furman from Finland, who is a medical doctor, and his main branch is psychiatry. And also let me welcome our other guest, whose name is Leoš Zatloukal. He comes from the Czech Republic, and he has PhD in both psychology and social work. So let me welcome you to this interview. And as the therapy that we are going to discuss is called solution-focused brief therapy. So let me ask you to introduce briefly yourself.
I can start. My name is Ben, and I have been teaching for more than 30 years solution-focused brief therapy to therapists and to social workers and to psychologists, not only here in Finland, in my own country, but I have actually been traveling to many countries, including Czech Republic, and that is where I have met Leoš and Lenka, and when we have been doing workshops over there, and they have also visited Finland.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I will follow because I teach solution-focused therapy for, let's say, 10 years or so, and I learned much from Ben when he was in Olomouc and from many others, and I teach solution-focused therapy, I do solution-focused therapy, I do solution-focused coaching, supervision, so I practice what I'm teaching, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Let me stay with the word brief, as many people can ask the question, what does brief mean? Does it mean that you come for one session that is like 1 hour short, or it's like 5 minutes, or is it 10 sessions? What does the word brief mean, in fact? Or is it 1 year? For some people, 1 year may be short. For others, it may be long. So what does the word brief mean?
Leoš, will you start?
Yeah, I can. From my perspective, to be brief in therapy has nothing to do with time. It's not like you have some set time for the therapy, like 10 sessions or 5 sessions or 1 session or whatever. But for me, it's more about the way how you do the sessions, how you lead the conversation. And this brief way is that you want to finish successful therapy as soon as possible. So you think of the end of the therapy for all the time, because therapy is not the solution. It's still part of the problem from my perspective. So if you want to find solution, you want to finish successfully the therapeutic work, and to be brief means that you want to help people as soon as possible. You don't want to hesitate. So that's my point of view.
Yeah, I was thinking that when we go to the dentist for fixing the tooth, very rarely the dentist says, "Oh, now you have to start coming here every week for at least 1 year or maybe 2 years." They try to fix your teeth as quickly as possible, and then you're out. So I think that's the basic idea. But you know, the word brief therapy is a complicated word because it means different things to different people. There is psychoanalytic brief therapy, but then you maybe go 20 times to the therapist, and it's always 20 times. There is interpersonal brief therapy. Huh? Then you go 12 times to the therapist, always 12 times. Then there is this type and that type, 16 times. And so different types there are so many brief therapies now around the world. and they are time limited. It is told you are coming here 6 times, you are coming here 10 times, and solution focused is very different because it is not time limited. And when it's not time limited, it means that you maybe only go 1 time. Unthought that a person only goes in therapy for 1 time. You cannot even believe that's possible. But that's what happens sometimes. People say, thank you, this was enough. Sometimes they go 2 times. Sometimes they go 20 times. So then the whole idea is that we don't time limit. And this is very special. And not all the therapists like this idea, because they don't like the idea that people come and go and one person comes 1 time and then where do I find my next patient? The therapists, they like the idea that the clients come regularly for, money. I'm joking. I'm joking a little bit, but this is not so good system. This come as many times as you like.
I guess it pleased the ear of the listeners that there is not an exact number of visits. Yep.
And your story with the dentist reminds me of a very common question, like people say, hey, how come that psychological problems are developed for many years in many cases, and you would like to change or solve them in 1 or 2 sessions? So it can't be so brief because it took so long time to get there to this piece of shit, or I don't know how to say it. Yeah. So how come that you can make such a huge change, even if the problem took so long time to appear and to fix? So yeah, do you have some answer for this?
Yeah, I like that question very much, because when many years ago when we started to speak about solution-focused brief therapy, people are like, huh? Are you crazy? They didn't even like to hear what we were saying. So then you have to think, how can it be possible that you meet somebody only 1 time? And it's because it's a different way of thinking altogether. The whole idea with brief therapy, this kind of solution-focused brief therapy, is that people are on the road. They are moving. They're already changing. When they come to us, who knows, maybe they're already halfway there. If we ask them, are you maybe halfway there? Oh, I didn't think about it like that. But if you start to think that it's not like a broken person who is coming to you, and then you start fixing that broken, like a car that has been rotting in the somewhere, and then you have to start fixing every part because it's totally broken, the whole car. This is different. This is like thinking that people are constantly changing, they are learning, they are something has happened before they come, and when they leave us, it will continue to happen. So the role of the therapist is different. It's not the fixer. It's a kind of a, I don't know how you say, midwife.
Creator. Co-creator.
Facilitator, some people.
Wow,
like to say.
good.
Or coach.
Cool.
You are coaching a process that's already there. That's
I
the
bet,
only way to think about it. Sorry,
yeah, sorry to you. I bet that's the really good news for everybody to hear that no matter how long the problem was lasting, there is a chance to do something about it and to improve the situation in 1-2 sessions in some cases. The question maybe that people can have is like, if you do something about that, after being bothered for such a long time, is there some guarantee or a hope that it will have really long-lasting effect, or a sustainable one?
If I can a little bit get back and a little bit get further to the question, because Ben reminded me of something very important. And sometimes we divide the journey of the client into two or more parts. Like there's a problem part, and it looks like in this part of the client's life, the only problem took place, nothing else, only problem. And then therapy start and the solution, or I don't know, some change take place. But in real life, clients, even if they have problems and they deal with them, they also do some very good things. Like Ben mentioned, that there are sometimes they are on the half of the way out of the problem. Sometimes they are on 90%. Sometimes they are on 1%. But also, it's not only about the problem. And for me, it's linked to your question, because if I ask if there can be some long-standing results of the therapy, also we built on what was during all phases. We use resources from the life of the client as a whole, not only from the beginning of therapy, 1-2 sessions. We can work with his whole life. And from the research findings, we can see that clients' resources, or extra therapeutic change, if you want, is the main source of therapeutic change. If you can utilize it in the process of therapy. If not, then it lies somewhere else, and you can't help. It don't help. It doesn't help. Yeah, but
I have a story. I'll try to make it brief, but it was many years ago. This lady called and she says, my son is in a special class, a lot of problems, and they place in a smaller, special education class. And I have been thinking of contacting. I think maybe you could help us, our family, with my son, who is such like a problem child. And I said in the phone, I said, is there any positive development? Because I had just learned solution-focused therapy. So you're supposed to ask, is there some positive development? And you can ask that question in the phone before they even come to see you. It's possible. So I said, is there any positive development? Maybe by chance, can there be? And she said, yeah, in fact, it's been a little bit better now. I was even thinking, should I call or should I maybe not call? Oh, I said, I was like a solution-focused therapist, get a fish, So then
big one.
Big one. I got a fish. So I said, before we make an agreement to meet, would you do a little like detective? Can you be a little bit like a detective? Try to find out, for me, what has caused this positive change. Can you go to father, to brother, to the teacher in the school, the small class, and try to find out from everybody just what is the theory, what they think has caused this positive development. Because you have seen it and everybody agrees. There is some. I don't mean that everything is fantastic, but there was some positive changes in behavior. So then she did it. And she called me again, and she said, yeah, father, he said, is because he has been more lenient with him, not so demanding. Brother said, I have taken him to play with my friends, so I have been more nice to him. And the teacher said, there's a project in the school, and all the children have been doing better because the project. See, everybody was like taking credit for this change. And I said, so what is your idea? What has been causing this change? I think it is because my husband has been a little bit more lenient with me. What was his idea about what has caused this change? I said, oh, I didn't ask him. She said, the mother. So I said, oh, I have another homework for you. Before we make a reservation for the meeting, can you please ask him to? Okay. She asked him to, and he had his own idea. I don't remember, but I never saw the mother. I never saw the family. Maybe they thought I don't want to see them or something. But the idea that change is already happening. If we believe that change is already happening, it doesn't mean it's every time happening. But if you believe it, at least in those cases where it is happening, you catch that. and you can strengthen that change. And all you have to do basically is start to ask, like you become a little bit stupid, like a Hercules Poirot. Oh, something has changed. Huh? Oh, what has happened? Can you explain to me? Because I don't understand. And in that way, this curiosity, this solution-focused curiosity, and this can explain why people can benefit from, in this case, it was not even one session, it was 2 phone calls or something like that. But this basic idea you can apply, and sometimes it's 1 session, sometimes it's 10 sessions. But anyway, the idea, even if you went for 10 times, even if you went for a whole year, it's still nicer to start the therapy feeling that you are already on the road.
If I understand, yeah, okay,
Sorry.
do that.
Okay. Only you remind me with the story that sometimes people think of change in the ways that you somehow freeze the good state and the symptom will never go back. Like you do the therapy and then the client is frozen and nothing change after this. And if something change and if some symptom or some problems will appear in his life, then it was relapse or it was not successful therapy or it was something hidden behind, some unconscious whatever and so on. But from my perspective, the sign that the change, the therapeutic change took place in the case is that the client start to change and change and change for better. Even there are some worse periods in his life. But he learned how to deal with changes because the life is about changes. And it reminds me a story of one woman client. She came to me and she has 65 years or so. And he realized that her husband has another woman. And she was like, you know, her life was crashed or something like that. And we searched for the ways how to deal with the situation, how to live a better life, even if this tough situation. And we had, I don't know, 3 or 5 sessions, and she became much better. She changed many things in her life. And then I think 1 or 2 years, I didn't hear from her. And then she asked me for a session again because her husband suddenly died. It was not because she killed him or something like that. No, it was some heart attack or something like that. And she want my help in this situation. It was quite different situation, but some previous thoughts came back. Some, you know, it needs some more support. So I did it. And from some perspective, you can say that this therapy took, let's say, 3 years because 2 years delay, some sessions before, some sessions after. So it's not much brief. But at the same time, I saw that she continued with the process of change because we built on the changes he did during the sessions, during the 2 years period of dealing with life situation. So it was not like some separate parts of her history. It was connected because she used her resources for the changes. So little story. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's wonderful that we can also hear some examples of real stories. And I have a question that might be connected with the last example, because when you were talking about the lady whose life was totally ruined, you know, so I can imagine that for many clients, they decide to go to see a therapist when their life is, when they are totally down, and they become obsessed by the problem. And now we are talking about solution-focused therapy. And you already gave some examples, but I would like to ask for more. How to help the client move from the problem and to stop being obsessed by it and not to let it ruin the life completely, and to make the shift to better life and to some solution, to give it a chance, because some of them come and they just cry and complain. So what can be done to distract them from seeing only the problem?
I can mention very quickly 3 techniques. One, these are kind of obvious techniques. Everybody knows these. I'm not saying anything new. One, have you been in similar situations before in your life? Something similar, like when you were a child or when you divorced before or something. So you look for some kind of strength that comes from having experienced similar things. Sometimes they are not exactly similar, but you know, you lost somebody now, but you have also lost somebody many years ago. And if you remember that, you can start to feel, oh, maybe I can, you know, find something with this. And then, number 2, have you already made some progress? I mean, you said you were suicidal just a week ago, but now you don't think about suicide anymore. There you go. There we have some signs of some positive development. And the 3rd one, kind of obvious, which I like to say like this: next time we meet, you know, in a week from now, maybe in 2 weeks from now, maybe a month from now. Anyway, next time we meet, I will ask you how it's going for you. And suppose, and this is a very important question in solution focus, suppose, and then you have to say, and suppose you tell me that things are a little bit better. Is possible? Yeah. Okay. If you say things are a little bit better, you know I'm going to ask you. So what is better? What do you think you will tell me? So that's basically the question which forces the person to have a little bit positive idea. Maybe not everything is fantastic. That's a little bit unrealistic. But something is a little bit better. And I think people need these kind of visualizations of a better life. They cannot visualize, maybe it's difficult to visualize that I'm more happy suddenly because it is not going to happen. But they can visualize that things will go in the right direction. So if you get this kind of a picture in your, somehow in your mind that I'm coming from here, I'm going there. So there is a kind of a visual idea that I'm on the right road, and I have some ideas of where this road is going to, and I have some ideas that I've already made some progress. So that would be my short version to your question. Yeah.
Wonderful.
If I can add something, some clients, from my perspective, are very brilliant. For example, I had a client. He had some anxiety problems, let's say, and when we started, he told me, "Hey, I don't want to analyze my problem much, because I spent hours with different therapists doing that, and I think I really understand what happened, why I have these problems, and I don't want to continue in this. I read on your website, then you do solution focus therapy, so now I need solution." So I think that was very clever guy, and I really did what you said. Your 3 points are very clever ways how to find solutions. And so we started to discuss about the preferred futures and so on. Some clients are not so brilliant at the beginning, and they are really focused on their problems because they really think that they will learn something from the problem to solve it. So, okay, I can give much respect for this point of view, no problem. But at the same time, I think that we can, piece by piece, learn together the ways how to solve the problem. Even if they are talking about the problems and they are deeply synced in it, we can help them to see also possibilities, also some points which came unnoticed in their life. Like you mentioned exceptions or the times when things were better. It's easy to overlook something like that if you are focused on the problems. Oh, now it is 8 o'clock, I have this anxiety. 10 o'clock, I have this anxiety. 12 o'clock, I have this anxiety. Oh, what a terrible life, anxiety. But what about 8 to 10? And what about 10 to 12? No anxiety? Oh, brilliant area for learning, I think. And sometimes clients come to this idea as well and say, okay, it makes sense to focus on those parts of my life which were not explored enough. So I didn't learn much from my own life, from my own experience. Somehow I closed my eyes in the best scene of my film. Yeah, so sometimes it works like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like therapist is or should be a detective with a good eye on details,
Yeah.
on those, especially those ones that might be helpful for the client.
Thank you for this metaphor, Lenka. I would say that therapist would be great Dr. Watson for the brilliant detective with solutions eyes. Like clients need to be the detectives who will find their solutions. But sometimes they need some stupid guy next to them who will ask them, hey, are there some better times? And the client, as a detective, started to think, okay, yesterday, I see, yesterday at 5 o'clock, I felt a little bit better. And then Dr. Watson, hey, can you tell me more about this? You are the genius. I see nothing, but you can tell me. Yeah, I think I was swimming. Oh, and how it worked. And now we are in this type of conversation. So I think that the detective in the story for me is much more the client, and I'm Dr. Watson, and I'm okay with this.
I guess many clients come to the therapist with the hope that they will be the repairman, who will fix the problem. In some other cases, probably after listening to this video, some of them might have the idea that they will see a therapist because that's Dr. Watson and it will be helpful. And still, many people come to the therapist because they suppose he is an expert, he knows everything, and he will give an advice, and this piece of advice will save them. It will make the life better. Do you have some experience with that? And how can you, are you for giving advice? Or how do you satisfy this need of the client when he or she comes for advice and says, I need advice, nothing more, just listen to me, I'll tell you my story and you'll give me advice, that's all.
Yeah, that's a lovely question. What was I thinking? First of all, there is a basic solution-focused way of answering that. If this says, please give me advice on what to do, so the typical solution-focused therapy, Watson. What does Watson do? When Sherlock Holmes asks, can you give me advice? Watson says, suppose I had some good advice to you. I'm not sure I have. I have something in mind already, but suppose I am able to give you some good advice. What change will that cause? What positive effect will it have? So then I know what to do. And suppose I give you the advice, and then you know what to do. So what will you do? It's almost like a trick question that if people ask for advice, we can also start to imagine what would happen if they get that advice from me. So I think there are all kinds of ways of going around that. Like the other one that is also one of my favorites is how you start the session, because Steve de Chaser, the famous, grandfather of solution-focused therapy, he had an interesting way of starting sessions, and I'm not sure this is the way he started sessions when he was doing demonstrations, when there was an audience and a camera, and I'm not sure he did it exactly like that when he was doing his clinical practice, but he would always say, my job is to ask you useful questions. Your job is to answer them as best you can. I'm going to do my best to ask good questions, and I'm sure you are going to do your best. So like setting the stage from the beginning, that did you think you come here for advice? Yeah, I can understand that everybody thinks so. But actually, I have to tell you, my job is to ask you good questions. My job is to ask you good questions. Your job is to answer them as best as you can. Almost like this is the deal. Take it or leave it. And people will say, okay, I take it. I like to hear your good questions. And then they start to understand that the therapist's job is different. It's not to advise, it's not to understand their problem, it's to ask good questions. And it's a whole different concept of therapy. But it's not that different from consultation, because when you are a consultant, you know, like a, I don't know, business consultant or something, that's what they do a lot. Their job is to ask good questions. And then people say, thank you very much. What are you thanking for? I haven't done anything. No, we are thanking you for your good questions. We didn't think about it like that. You helped us to think about it in the right way. So the good questions is helping people to think about situation in a good way. So I think that kind of answers this give me advice. What shall I do with my daughter? Give me advice. My husband is impossible. Give me advice because my job is terrible, and so on.
Thank you for this reminding of questions, because from my perspective, it's very important to know that questions are not only for gathering information, but there are also intervention tools. I read in some book on Ericksonian hypnotherapy that questions are also powerful indirect suggestions. So, because if you ask for something, you focus an attention of both of participants into some subject, into some image, into something, and it's not innocent. It makes changes. It's intervention, and at the same time, also it's gathering information. And I would like to say that if I'm to say some advice, to give some advice to the client, I need some information. I can't give advices like, hey, you have nice glasses, so perhaps the best way for you would be to put them on your head and turn around 3 times or something like that. It's something like that. Yeah. So if I'm to give professional advice as a therapist, okay, I need some information. And from my perspective, I need, let's say, 5 types of information. I need to know what the client wants to, what change he or she wants in her life or his life. If I don't have this information, I can't focus the advice. Then I need to know something about previous successes. You mentioned that sometimes clients are on the halfway to their goals. And if they are on the halfway, I need to know. If I don't know, my advice will be totally out of. And I need to know something about their resources. I need to know what helped them to be on the way somewhere, perhaps on 50%, perhaps on 1%, I don't know, but somewhere. I need to know what helped them.
And you might even want to know if they have gotten some advice that was not useful. That could be also very interesting. Like, okay, has anybody given you advice? So what do you think about this? Has it been helpful to you? Now you know at least what advice you don't give, huh?
Yeah. So I have to collect some important information, and clients are very okay with this. If I tell them, okay, I need to know some information, and then I will give you advice. Then, and the last, or perhaps not last, but another one, information I need is about his or her ideas, what to do now. And sometimes clients have so brilliant ideas that I can say, okay, this one sounds good. This is my advice, do this. Come on. Sometimes clients don't have their ideas, so I can offer something. It's not prohibited. It's not like in solution focused therapy we don't say anything. No, we can. If we see that there is a lack of resources, of knowledge, we can offer something. But at the same time, if I offer something, it's experimental. It's okay, you can try it if you want, if it makes sense for you, and observe the difference. And if it works for you, okay. If not, throw it away. It's only experiment, nothing more. It's not advice like if you do this correctly, then you are perfect client. If not, you are resistant. No, this is not the way of working with advice in my practice.
Which can be a danger sometimes in cognitive behavioral therapy, where there's a lot of advice giving, and the therapist's job is to give advice and to clear instructions of how to do. And then if the parent doesn't, the client doesn't do the homework properly, then somehow, I don't know if anybody blames the client, but the client maybe feels that I haven't been a good patient because I haven't done the exercises or the experiments or the homework that the therapist. So we also give homework, but we try to be a little bit soft about it. Not like you have to do this, but more like, what do you think would be a good thing for you to do, and could it be something like that? Would you like to try? Up to you, and never blaming the client for not doing the homework that they thought they would do. Anything else? Yeah.
Even not doing homework is sometimes experiment of itself. Like they experiment with their life without homework. And even if they do anything, I will ask them on the next session how the situation is now, what was changed, what is better, and how did they contribute to this better. And yeah, it's up to them.
These are wonderful words, and I'm pretty sure that the listeners had wonderful opportunity to collect, as you said, many ideas connected directly to solution-focused brief therapy. It was the first video. I guess there is a hope we will continue. And I'm very grateful that these two wonderful guys agreed about that and ran this interview, and that there is this wonderful connection between Dalet Institute and Helsinki Brief Therapy Institute. And I will look forward to having another interview. And do you have some words to conclude or to give some message to possible clients that could recruit from the listeners who started either considering going for a therapy or having training in this therapy?
I think if it's possible, we would like to make this available, this conversation on YouTube to everyone. And then our hope is, of course, that people start to, if they find it, hopefully they find this interview. But if they find it and they like it, we would like them to put these questions. There are questions there on YouTube, because there is a place where you can write. Mm-hmm. And if they write their thoughts and ideas, then we will be, Lenka will be taking the questions and here is a question from the audience, and hopefully we could build a group of people who are excited about solution-focused brief therapy, who like to talk about it and who like to ask questions. And we love answering questions, so there's no doubt about it.
From my perspective, I only want to thank all of the people who watched the video for the interest and for their time invested in this. And big thanks for Lenka for moderating this discussion. And I would like to say, if you have any questions, like Ben said, please ask, and I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We can all see that you are good at asking questions, but you are also perfect at answering the questions. So many thanks to Ben Furman from Finland and to Leoš Zatloukal from the Czech Republic.